Hello, my sweet ducklings, and welcome back for another episode of Language Learning for Pretty Birds. Today, we're going to talk about errors. My goal is to make you less afraid of making mistakes, but also to give you a tool for analyzing and correcting them on your path to mastery. It's for everybody, but this one will be especially helpful for those of you enrolled in formal language classes. So, let's go. Part 1, Learner Language. In my business, we call the predictable stages of development that a duckling goes through on their way to mastery learner language, and I love it. Learner language is a fascinating and endearing window into the mind, and it should be viewed as such. Learner language has elements of the duckling's native language or languages, target language, and elements of neither that are characteristic of emerging language development. Think of scaffolding on a building being constructed. For example, as I mentioned in the last video, the limits of working memory cause our brains to interpret the first noun or pronoun it hears or reads as the subject or agent of the sentence, even if that's not how word order operates in either the native or the target language. Or there's a phenomenon called hypercorrection. Your brain learns a new rule, then over-applies it. Did you just learn about reflexive pronouns in Italian? Well, you might find yourself using those on verbs that aren't reflexive, even though you've been comfortable with those verbs for months without a hitch. All this is normal. This too shall pass. But it's easy for me to view this jumble with the proud affection of a mother looking at a macaroni picture that has pieces falling off. Meanwhile, you're busting your ass for a grade. You're embarrassed. You want to get good, and you have shit you need to do with this language. Well, the only way out is through. Ultimately, a large volume of input is the only thing that irons out these processing problems. However, when you're stepping out of Milonga mode and into Practica mode to troubleshoot, it's good to have an analytical framework. So I invented one. Part 2, Error Analysis. I have an optional error analysis activity I offer my university ducklings to help them identify the sources of their mistakes so they can focus their studies more effectively. Using this tool, you can answer the question, why did I get this wrong? And tackle the root of the error rather than studying scattershot. There are ultimately only 3 reasons why you might get something wrong on a quiz or a writing assignment. Those are form, concept, or a reading error. Let's begin with form. Remember that forms are the different iterations of a word. Falcon is the singular, falcons is the plural of the word falcon. An error in form might look like this. The falcon and the bluebird flies through the sky. The falcon catch the rabbit. The bluebird eat the worm. Or it might look like this. The falcon and the bluebird flay through the sky. The falcon cat the rabbit. The bluebird eating the worm. Or even like this. The falcon and the bluebird, sorry, I forgot, through the sky. The falcon, the rabbit. The bluebird, the worm. None of these poor ducklings have their forms down. The first duckling at least has memorized all the forms. The words they wrote are real words that exist, but has forgotten which form agrees with which. This is good, because even though they guessed wrong in this case, they at least have real forms to plug into these structures, and they understand what they're supposed to be doing with them. They're almost there. The second duckling has not memorized their forms and is taking fuzzy stabs at them with the best they've got. That's less desirable, but in analyzing that error, the duckling can determine that they just need to buckle down and memorize those forms, and don't necessarily need to come to office hours or review a whole chapter. The third duckling is having a rough time and is probably pretty stressed, the poor darling. Emotionally, a form error can feel like, it's on the tip of my tongue, god damn it, or a sudden blankness. You know what you're supposed to do, you just don't remember which thing goes where, or how to say the thing you're supposed to say. It feels frustrating. But If the error you made is in regard to form, then congratulations. Memorize your forms, and that should clear up the problem. It's the most straightforward fix of the lot. This is part of why I tell ducklings to focus on form when learning new material. Next, we have concept. Sometimes you might know your forms, but you don't understand what you're supposed to be doing with them. That might look like this. The falcon and the bluebird, he has through the sky. The falcon, he the rabbit. The bluebird, he the worm. The duckling in question has a few forms, but doesn't understand when or how to use them. You can tell that the duckling is iffy on subjects and verbs and how they go together, and is taking a stab at questions using pronouns that they know from prior weeks in the course. Emotionally, concept errors feel scary. You look at a question and you don't know what you're being asked to do. You're not necessarily frustrated, you're confused, and that leads to feelings of panic or despair. These errors are made of the stuff our lifelong nightmares about being back in school come from. For concept errors, ducklings need extra help. This is a case for office hours, tutoring, hitting the books, finding YouTube explainers, or as much of the above as the duckling has time or bandwidth for. Sometimes these issues can be ironed out pretty quickly, but they usually can't be ironed out alone. Make sure your forms are in place and get extra help. Finally, we come to the last source of errors, which are reading errors. They can look like this. The falcon and the bluebird flies through the sky. The falcon catches the rabbit. The bluebird eats the worm. This duckling clearly has the concept down. They're putting the correct words in the correct places, and they know the third singular. They nailed the second two, including the irregular one. But they use the singular for the first sentence. So this is likely to be a reading error. They saw the falcon and their eye glossed over and the bluebird. Remember the first noun or pronoun coming down the conveyor belt? This is really common, especially when one of the two subjects is a pronoun. For example, the falcon and I sings a madrigal. It's very, very easy to skip over that and I, and so this is probably the reading error I encounter most often, especially when the duckling is so confident that they rush through and without checking their work. Emotionally, reading errors can feel like nothing at all, or nailed it, and then you get your paper back and go, ah, shit. Okay, so I never get a chance to tell this anecdote anywhere, and I'm just putting it in here. One of my opera ducklings, a tenor with a big voice and personality, once did this in class. Ah, shit. So I jokingly wagged a finger at him and I said, in Italiano, to which he instantly replied, shit, and brought the house down. It was great. There are two fixes for reading errors. The short term for quizzes and tests is to develop a habit of writing all over your paper and double checking your work. I encourage ducklings to underline the subject of sentences and write down the pronoun that they would use like this. The falcon and I, we sing a madrigal. Importantly, an error can have more than one source. So keep that in mind as you identify issues and approach the issues in this order. Focus on form, figure out the concept, and then work on reading. As an instructor, I can correct errors and give a lot of feedback that goes way beyond correct or incorrect, and I can diagnose a lot of problems this way. However, I encourage all ducklings to turn to their errors with this analytical lens. First, it saves them time by being able to tell precisely what they need to study and when they need extra help. But also, as much training and experience as I have in interpreting learner language, I still can't read minds. You know what's going on in your life and your head better than I do. Part 3. Conte, conto. Mistakes are embarrassing, and it's all well and good for me to say, don't be shy, don't be ashamed, because it's not so easy. But I like to tell this little story to help ease people's nerves. After I'd been in Florence for a month or so, My Italian was coming along a treat, as you can imagine. One evening, I was having coffee somewhere a bit fancier than I would have usually chosen, waiting on some friends to go see a film. The waiter was in a uniform and was extremely formal. Si, signora, no, signora. And I was sitting there feeling quite elegant with my Italian and my vintage 1930s hat. Like, dig me. I'm a fancy lady. Here I am speaking Italian in Italy. Fuck yeah. When it was time to ask for the bill, I said, Il conte, per favore. To which the waiter replied, Si, signora, and shimmered off to get it. I sat there for a moment, still rather full of myself, until it dawned on me. Ah, shit. You see, comrades, I had not asked for il conto, the bill. I had asked for il conte, that is, a person more important than a knight, but less important than a duke. And that was embarrassing. It really deflated my ego there for a second, which is good, but it was also pretty funny, and that's also good. So, when the waiter returned, I said, Mi scusi, signore, però quando ho chiesto per il conto, per sbaglio ho detto il conte. And he, of course, rushed to assure me, Oh, no, 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 signorina, va bene, capisco perfettamente. To which I said, Ma allora, hai un principe anche. And he laughed. The mask of formality dropped, and we had a little conversation like, Oh, how do you speak Italian so well? Obviously not that well. And it was lovely. And of course, I never mixed up conto or conte again. And I still use conte to teach my favorite word, which is pipistrello, as in, quando Conte Dracula si trasforma in un animale, diventa un pipistrello. So, overall, the experience came in handy. Most importantly, if I hadn't made that mistake and then leaned into it, I wouldn't have made a real connection with the waiter or given him a laugh. So, when we have the luxury of doing so, we should really try to laugh at our mistakes. A good mistake is a great anecdote, and I have plenty. Once, a duckling said that she wanted to study un-Italian rather than Italian, to which a significant number of students responded, Well, we want to take that class. Another time, one of my senior citizen ducks remembered avvocato, but mixed up his verbs, stating I have a lawyer rather than I am a lawyer. To which I said, Ooh, that's actually a threat. We all had a great laugh. It's wonderful. It loosens us all up and brings the classroom community together. I find my ducklings' errors fascinating and endearing and beautiful because in them I'm watching them do the coolest thing anybody can do to their brains. I'm watching new things in them grow and bloom. I'm watching my babies take their first steps. And anyone who's an asshole to you for your mistakes will be an asshole to you for your perfection too. So as my mother always says, fuck 'em. No citations today. Error analysis is a tool I invented after a few years of grading under my belt. But thanks as ever to the lovely folks who designed these beautiful PowerPoint slides. Hit me up on Discord if you have any questions, and I'll see you in class.